It is July of 1762, in the heart of Hyegyeong, today's Seoul. The stones of the royal courtyard scorch beneath the summer heat, and all eyes turn to one man. Crown Prince Sado, heir to the throne of Joseon, stands before his father, King Yeongjo. His face, pale and gaunt, is marked by years of torment and paranoia. But the king's expression is worse, a mask of grief carved in stone. Before them lies a wooden rice chest, ordinary in form, yet destined to become a coffin of shame. The command has already been given. To strike a prince with the sword would desecrate royal blood. To starve him in silence was to preserve the throne's dignity, while erasing the man who threatened it. And so, with the creak of wood and the dull thud of the lid closing, a dynasty preserved itself through the slowest of deaths. To understand the cruelty of his end, one must begin at his birth. Crown Prince Sado was born on February 13, 1735, in the royal palaces of Hyegyeong. He was the second son of King Yeongjo and his consort, Lady Yongbin. Fate crowned him before he could even walk. When his elder brother died in infancy, the one-year-old was named heir, bound not only to his father's dynasty, but to its survival. From the outside, his childhood appeared gilded, filled with silks, tutors, and the promise of kingship. But within those palace walls, the boy's life was poisoned early. King Yeongjo was not a gentle father. Haunted by conspiracies that had nearly cost him his throne, he ruled with suspicion and demanded perfection from his only surviving son. Every mistake became humiliation. Every triumph was met with cold dismissal. For Sado, childhood was not filled with laughter, but with interrogations, scoldings, and public shame. Where there should have been guidance, there was only scrutiny. The Crown Prince's earliest lessons were not of love, but of fear, and fear, once planted, grew wild in his mind. At the age of 10, Sado's body betrayed him. A sudden illness left him fainting in the middle of lessons, trembling on the palace floor. Though he recovered, whispers began. The boy had spells, the boy saw things. Ministers murmured that the heir's constitution was too weak for rule. King Yeongjo saw only proof of incompetence. But the truth was more complex. What doctors called fainting fits, Lady Hyegyeong, his future wife, would later describe as terrors that haunted him into adulthood. He spoke of visions no one else could see, thunder gods with fiery eyes, omens of divine punishment, shadows that mocked his weakness. Illness had not just touched him, it had taken root in his imagination. By adolescence, the palace was no longer his home, but his prison. Each reprimand from his father drove him deeper inward. Each hallucination convinced him that heaven itself mocked his weakness. Ministers who should have been tutors felt like spies. He smiled when commanded, bowed when expected, but behind closed doors he wept, raged, and whispered at enemies no one else could see. To the outside world, the prince was dutiful, but inside, he was already unraveling. The first true sign of madness came not in politics, but in his chambers. Crown Prince Sado grew horrified by clothing itself. He demanded robe after robe, only to tear them off in fury, ordering servants to burn entire bundles before his eyes. What began as fussing over collars became obsession, a phobia so consuming that even seamstresses feared for their lives if a stitch displeased him. His wife would later write that clothing became not protection, but prison. Each layer suffocated him until rage was his only release. As he grew older, his terrors only deepened. Raised to embody the mandate of heaven, he instead trembled at its symbols. Thunder sent him diving under roofs. Lightning in the sky reduced him to a shivering child. He avoided paintings of storm deities and drums carved with thunder motifs, convinced that even distant rumbles foretold doom. Where heaven was supposed to confirm his destiny, it instead confirmed his fear. The weight of an empire sat upon King Yeongjo's shoulders. He was not just a father. He was the guardian of a dynasty, the living embodiment of Joseon's stability. To tolerate a mad crown prince was to invite rebellion. To kill his only surviving son was to destroy his own bloodline. History often praises kings for strength, but it rarely tells of the torment they bore in silence. For Yeongjo, the choice was not between love and hate, but between the survival of his kingdom and the ruin of his family. And so, in that gilded palace, with trembling hands and a broken heart, He made the decision that would seal his son's fate forever. The moment arrived with no ceremony, no farewell. Soldiers, men who once bowed before their prince, now dragged him like a criminal through the palace stones. His cries echoed, mingling with the chirping of cicadas and the whispers of horrified servants. "I am your prince. I am your blood," he shouted. But blood meant nothing now. To the world outside, it was the day a father condemned his son. To those inside, it was the day the heir to the throne was unmade, stripped of honor, dignity, and hope. No executioner raised a blade. No rope was tied around his neck. Instead, a rice chest, the very container used to store food for the living, would now serve as a tomb for the dying. It was cruel, yet clean. It left no blood to stain the palace stones, no spectacle to shame the dynasty. The lid creaked open, and the prince stared into its darkness. "Father, please," he begged. But the king did not answer. In silence, the son of the empire was lowered into his wooden coffin, and the lid was shut tight. Darkness swallowed him whole. The chest became a world of suffering. Hours turned to days, days into a slow eternity. Inside, the prince fought for breath, clawed at the wood until his fingers bled, screamed until his voice was nothing but a rasp. No water, no air, no light. Only heat, hunger, and despair. Outside, no one dared to intervene. The courtiers whispered that they could still hear him praying, cursing, pleading, even singing. But one by one, the sounds grew weaker, until only silence remained. After 8 endless days, Crown Prince Sado, once heir to the throne of Joseon, died not as a prince, but as a prisoner of wood and fate. In death, Crown Prince Sado became more than a man. He became a scar upon the history of Joseon. His widow, Queen Hyegyeong, preserved his memory in secret writings, torn between love and truth. His son, Yeongjo, would one day ascend the throne, carrying both the burden of his father's shame and the determination to redeem his name. And the rice chest, that plain wooden box, became a symbol of tragedy, reminding generations that even within gilded palaces, the most powerful throne cannot escape the cruelties of fate.